is our family right here. Hey, look, it's you guys. All right, how you guys doing? Thanks for coming to the JBL conversation with Snakehips. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm feeling good, man. Thank you.
Yeah, so you just played a couple hours ago, so it's a
Just-
busy day for you.
Very recently, it was a beautiful show. You know, I'm just chilling now. You know, it's good to be out here.
Yeah, well, we're very happy that we can make this happen. So before we dive in, I'll just quickly explain. So my name is Aasheesh Paliwal. I do artist relations for JBL, which is a speaker company. And Ollie, as you guys know, is one half of Snakehips. And the purpose of this conversation for the next half an hour to 45 minutes is basically just to get to know Ollie a little bit more within the context of an artist, producer, and sort of like how you came up, and really to provide hopefully some value to other creative people in the audience or who watch this when it gets on YouTube, who are also considering a career as like an artist or a creative person, which, as we all know, is not necessarily like a linear path. So I think the best way to dive into it is just kind of start with like kind of the origin story, in whichever way you want to start, sort of like going back to your early interest in music and early influences and how you got started.
Okay, yeah, I guess. So, I know weirdly because I've always played music, and throughout like being a teenager, I always used to play in bands. I was a guitar player, and I kind of went through the whole like playing in a lot of bands and doing that whole thing. And I did like a music degree in Leeds University in the north of England, and I kind of got through the whole thing at the age 21, and I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing like with my life. And that was like when I started like fucking around with GarageBand and I'm not trying to swear, right? Messing around with GarageBand and like Logic and things like that. And it was only kind of after I'd done a whole course in the kind of business of music and stuff like that that I kind of thought about making electronic music and like producing and stuff, because I'd only ever been in bands and things like that and played saxophone and all those type of things. And so yeah, I've always been into the whole thing, and then it was probably around literally turning 20 or 21 where I figured like I was always into hip hop music and stuff, so I was like, I'm just gonna make beats, and like it was something that I really enjoyed, but I'd never really thought about that much before. And kind of out of a place where I just wasn't sure what I was trying to do, even musically and like with my life. So I just got into producing and yeah, I don't know, man. I like got a MacBook Pro and started just making beats. I still got the same MacBook. It's like 8 years old, 9 years old, and yeah, that was it. I felt like I was kind of on the wrong kind of path my whole life until I like turned a certain age, and then suddenly I was like, man, I could just do this. And it kind of, you know, the idea of like sampling music, like I think what first got me into producing music was like old school hip hop music, people like Pete Rock and DJ Premier and Jay Dilla and stuff like that. That was, it kind of made sense to me because I wasn't super like technical with producing or whatever like that, but the idea that you could kind of chop a bit out of a record and then put some cool drums around it and stuff, like that really, it like made so much sense to me. So I think I got into this point where I was just spending a million hours a day on the internet, just going through like soul blogs and stuff and all this like disco blogs from the 70s and the 60s and stuff, and just trying to find cool samples and stuff. And yeah, and that was it. And then I kind of got into producing. And that was kind of my thing, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting because it sounds like you played a lot of instruments growing up.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah, that was my thing. Like I kind of, my mum is a music teacher, and my dad's a teacher. He's like a history teacher. But I think from literally 4 years old, I started playing like the violin and stuff. And like I think my dad's a guitar player, so I started playing that early on as well. and then the saxophone, and that was kind of my thing for a little while. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool. I think I had to like properly find my thing that I was really passionate about, because I used to be in all types of bands and stuff, and especially with the saxophone, it was like you would work with people that were the best musicians, and I would almost be like, oh man, how do you do that shit? But I think when you like find something that you're really like properly passionate about, it kind of all starts to make sense. And I was always like, oh man, these dudes are so sick, but I wasn't completely invested in like jazz music or like classical music or whatever it was, and I never really found my own thing that I realized I could do really, really, really well until it was like kind of just sampling and making hip hop music, I guess. And like, it's weird because I think now even like the music we make these days is not super like chopping up the samples and putting drums to it, but like that's kind of where I come from. Like, my favorite music is just stuff where they just take it off an old record and just put a really cool kick and snare to it, and that's really what got me into like producing and hip hop and rap and everything like that. And I love that shit.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, those are like some legends in the sampling game. So when you started doing this, were you thinking at all about like it being a career, like, or was there a period where you're just like, this is just fun? Like, were you trying to send beats to rappers, or like, what was the?
Not even.
It was just for
not even close. Like, I think it was like a really slow kind of thing, because I think what happened was like as a linear thing. It was like I used to play in bands and I used to play with a bunch of my friends, and then I kind of like went to university and then like graduated through university, and like I didn't really have anyone to make music with anymore. So I was just kind of like, I'll do it myself. So I started making beats and stuff. There wasn't really any point where I was trying to like, I think the very early stuff I was making, it was just like funny stuff. I used to like name the songs really stupid things, and I just put it on SoundCloud. I think like it's a really fun thing to do, and I don't think it really happens anymore, but we could literally just make a beat in like 2 hours and put it on SoundCloud and give it a stupid name, and like people would listen to it, you know, and that's kind of like, I guess the whole rush of doing it was just kind of like the instant reaction to like making a song like that and just hear it, like letting people hear it and stuff. I didn't think for a second, I was never sending my beats to rappers because I knew they sounded a bit shit, or sorry, bad. And like, yeah, it wasn't really like that. I never saw it as like, I'm trying to send this person, they're gonna rap on it. I was just like, I'm making rap beats that sound like they're from 10 years ago, but I really like it, and like other people gonna like it and stuff, so yeah.
And how early before like the start of Snakehips was that? Like,
well, no, the stupid thing is I was, that was Snakehips,
okay,
essentially.
Yeah.
But I think I used to do this thing where I'd like, we'd like go to concerts at music festivals, and I'd pull my trousers up really high and do this stupid dance move, and that's why people call me Snakehips. So the music was always called Snakehips from like way back. It wasn't the same stuff, but like it was always, there was a point like a few years ago where there was this weird old MySpace where you could find my like original beats called Snakehips. Yeah.
This is before you met Jay, like before you guys.
Yeah. I got rid of it.
Yeah.
It took a little while. It genuinely took a little while. Like, I had a few, you know, when you like have like a couple of passwords that you use for everything. So I forgot what it was for like 2 or 3 years. But it's gone now. Don't look for that.
Oh my God, the archives. Someone's gonna go dig that up. That's amazing. So you were already like using that name and like doing your thing. Then at some point you linked up with James. Did you guys meet in music school? Like, how did you guys first meet?
Yeah. So yeah, basically, we had this whole thing where stupid shit. Like, one of our friends got on our, you know how you can like edit Wikipedia, like anyone can do it. So our friend Toby got into our Wikipedia one day and like made this whole thing up about us like meeting in Hong Kong, and and like I used to play in mariachi bands and stuff, but like it was all.
I'm so happy you brought this up first, because like I was looking at your Wikipedia yesterday.
It was
that
a
would have
thing.
been embarrassing.
it was really funny to us because like if you write something in your Wikipedia, like people would interview and they'd be like, "What was it like growing up in Mexico?" I was like, "I'm from England, clearly, man." But it was really funny. So, but yeah, we never met in Hong Kong through mariachi bands. Like he's a friend of a friend from London. Like actually, the first time I met James, we were in this club. And I was with a girl at the time. She went missing for about 40 minutes. And I went out to the smoking area, and she was talking to James, and I'd never met him before. Like, they'd been out there for a second. I was like, girl, what's going on here? So I had a bit of a beef with James at first because I don't know what he was doing, man. I never trusted that guy. It took a couple years. That was the first time I met him. And then a few years later, so James has always been like a very talented like producer and mixer and stuff. So I knew a bunch of his friends, and he used to work for this guy called Mike Spencer. He's actually quite a like sick mixer and like producer and additional producer who lives in England. And so I guess around the time I started releasing my first like remixes and stuff, I seen him out in a pub somewhere, and he was like, "Hey, you know what, I actually like finish records for people and stuff like that." So we kind of made friends. I was always a bit skeptical of him as a dude, but nice guy though, probably.
Probably, hopefully.
No, but no, so yeah, I guess so he was working as like a mixer, additional producer, all that type of stuff, and he'd done like Emily Sandé. He'd done a few like rudimental records and stuff. There was like a few things that he worked on, and he was always really sick. Like I don't think he never had any A levels or anything like school qualifications or whatever. But like he was just really, really good at music. So he always used to make his own stuff, and he managed to get like an internship or like a job with this guy he's made so many sick records. And James was just kind of working for him for a bit and kind of helping him out with his like. I don't know exactly what. So I kind of met him a few years later, and he was like, "Oh man, I could mix your record for you." And I broke up with the girl who he'd been trying to chirps at the time. So I was like, "Man, maybe we could be friends now." And that's how it started.
And you guys are cool.
Yeah. Now we're cool, kind of, a little bit.
Wait, so that's interesting. So it sounds like you, at least at the beginning, you had like complementary skill sets. Like he was
absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, like when I was starting making beats, like I knew I couldn't make music that well, but like I knew I had really good ideas. So I'd be making just kind of it was honestly it was like very basic kind of like sample based hip hop music, and I guess I just heard it in a different way. And like around the time when I started making beats, it's probably 2010. So I really got into Hudson Mohawk and like Taku and people like that. And there was this whole wave of stuff going on where it was like people were sampling old school stuff and making old school stuff, but like they were producing it so sick. So it didn't sound like it was from the 90s. It was just really, really, really cool. And so I got really like caught up in that whole thing. I think like literally I got Hudson Mohawk's first mixtape is like my favorite fucking album ever. It's so sick. It has all of the like stylings of old school hip hop, but he like just brought it so forward, and I think it really inspired me to just kind of like start making drums that were kind of swang, and like the production wasn't really, really perfect, but it just had this vibe to it, you know, and that's basically I never really like felt. I remember like making really, really early beats, and I would send them out to like anyone. I used to send them to like Hudson Mohawk and stuff. I'd be like, "Bro, like, check out my beats." You know, I was like, I know they're not that good, but like you can, cause I knew that the ideas were there, but I didn't know how to execute it that well. And I think then meeting James, he was kind of like already in that world of like producing and like building stuff up. So he could kind of take something that I'd done as an idea and turn it into like a real thing. And that's definitely how it worked in the first place. Like I think the first record we worked on together as like Snakehips was like a remix. So it was a remix that It was like Wild Bell. I can't remember what the song was called. It's Too Late. And like, I just did it, and he was like, bro. Because I think it was commissioned by a record label, so it was like, I need to get this sounding fly, otherwise they're not gonna like take my remix. So he like just built the whole thing up and added drums to it and stuff. But yeah, it was kind of like that. It was like I'd make something that sounded a bit frowsy, and then he would like take it on and turn it into like a proper sounding production type of thing.
Yeah, that's a really cool story, because I feel like it sounds like that allowed you to be a lot more prolific, like early on, just to like finish stuff and get it out there. And like, I feel like maybe like younger producers, they feel like they need to be like amazing at every aspect.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. And like, it's so many, and that frustrates me a little bit, because you always see people being like, they made like a million beats, and it's like, this is a work in progress. I'm not trying to share this with people, but like, my like mindset in the first place, and maybe it's, you know, it's probably not completely right, but I think being like scared to share your stuff with people is just not the right way to go about it. Because I would kind of be like, I know this doesn't sound that good, but if you don't fuck with it, like, you're an idiot type of thing. Like, not in like an arrogant way, but I always knew that I had good ideas, so I would kind of be like, look, I know this doesn't sound that fresh, but like, if you can't hear the potential in this, like, you know what I mean? I always saw it as more of like a composition, like a songwriter type thing. It was like, I'd make a beat, but I'd like sample some vocals over it and stuff. And it was never really about like flexing on like a production level. It was more just like, look, this is a good song. Like in a kind of song terms. And I feel like sometimes people not really care about how polished your production is, but it's like, if you have a good enough idea there, then it kind of sounds fly anyway. And if you don't hear that, then you don't hear that. But like, shit, you know?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, the average person, or like listener, I guess,
right,
doesn't care that you like use the plugin or whatever.
No, like yeah.
So, okay, I want to go back to, you mentioned earlier about SoundCloud and how like that, I know that was like a big part of your guys' early rise, and that was definitely the era. Like during that time, it was like you could upload stuff onto SoundCloud, and it was this like amazing community, super organic, like instant feedback. And it's not necessarily like, I mean, I think you still can do that, but it's like now it's so much more saturated. And I think like, you know, maybe younger producers are looking more at like Spotify and like other things like that. So like, how do you feel like it's changed for you guys, like in terms of releasing or just musicians in general?
I don't know, because like I feel we kind of like did a record deal at the point where like SoundCloud turned into the weird thing what it is now. So I don't really know. Like, it definitely, I think when we started out, we could put a song up on SoundCloud and it would just go like crazy. And we don't really have that type of platform anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like an amazing time, because it's crazy. Like literally, I feel like the only reason I was like doing my beats was because I could put a beat up on SoundCloud and people were like, oh, this is cool, but the drums ain't that nice and stuff. And like, it was literally like a community of people who all made like the same type of stuff, and everyone was just vibing off each other. And like, you don't get that now. I don't know. It was really, really, really good for like me even making beats, because like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. So people would give you like bits of advice or whatever. But SoundCloud was like our thing, man. Like I don't know if it's still the same, but like some of our records that blew up on SoundCloud, it was crazy, and you just watch them just going like, literally on your like Safari page, just being like, oh damn, man, people are listening to this. But like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're still up there. Like, they're just growing.
Yeah, they're still there.
They're like growing daily. Like,
they're still there somewhere.
Early remixes, and like I know like even like Hype Machine was like big for you guys, and I wonder like how relevant. I guess like, so a question to ask then would be like, I mean, I'm sure you probably, I don't know how what your system is with this, but like you probably get demos from people, or like, you know, people like sending you beats. Like, what do you look for in a new artist? Like, what catches your ear, like musically?
Nothing specifically. I just like, if it's cool, you know? I don't have a like, I just love music. So like, if something makes you feel a certain type of way, and there's no like formula to anything for me. It's like, I feel like music is just like a thing where if you just do it right, it just makes you feel a type of way, and like that's nothing that I'm judging, you know? It's like, if you made a banger, you made a banger.
Well, I think like that's actually helpful for electronic musicians, because it's like what we were talking about earlier. a lot of people just want to make like really dope, like well-produced music that they can like show off as like it's like well-produced.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't have like a feeling or like emotion to it, then it's like, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a different way of looking at music. Like I used to play like guitar and stuff and sing songs. So I've never. I think it's like EDM what we make essentially, but like I've never looked at what I do as like producing like, you know what I mean? I like dance music. Like I write songs. I think that's always what I see myself as. So like I kind of write any song before I would produce it, type of thing. I make beats and stuff, but I always think of it as more of like a like something that goes along with a melody or whatever. So it's just a kind of different thing.
Do you feel like as your career has like progressed, or you've made more and more music, you've moved from beat maker to like songwriter? Because like a lot of your stuff is hip hop based, but then like, you know, your new record single is like just like a good song. Like Definitely. It's not necessarily like.
The thing is, we always wrote songs. Like I love writing songs, and like that's like what we do. But I know what you mean, because I think like when we were starting out, we always wanted to work with like singers and rappers and whatever, because we weren't really, you know what I mean? It wasn't like we're trying to do some like purely instrumental kind of like beats thing. Like I love songs. I like making songs. So we always were getting in the studio with like singers and top liners or whatever, and just trying to write cool songs. Because I think that's the thing. It's like I do write a lot of songs myself, but it's quite nice to just getting in the studio with someone, and you'll have like a little idea, and they'll just suddenly take it somewhere you never knew it was gonna go, and it's like, oh man, you know? Yeah. And I don't know. I just love writing songs, and it's always such a rush, just like coming up with something that has like so many things going on in it, rather than like just making a beat or whatever.
So speaking of that, you guys have had some really like just interesting collaborations. Like I think you've done a good job of crossing genres, you know, like especially like the last record. How does that, like I guess how have some of those come about, like in terms of like meeting up with those people, or like?
I don't know. Honestly, it was like we've always, like I said, like we were kind of making our beats, and we were like, let's make some tunes with people. So I think starting out, we just did a few EPs, and we were just working with people who we knew, or like people from London, or like people who was just coming up or whatever. And like the more we traveled, you would just like meet different people and just do whatever. So like I feel like our second EP, we worked with like Sid out of the internet, and there was a few things, and like I think some of the like more like the bigger ones that people know is just like just have like a cool idea, and you realize that it would suit a certain type of thing. Like I think when we wrote like All My Friends, we were just like, bro, man, this sounds like a big tune, so let's get someone. And I think we just signed to a record label. We signed to RCA in America, and Tinashe was on it, and they were trying to get us to collaborate, and we were like, we'll write a song for her, man, it's all good. Yeah. And then there was like a second verse, and we were like, man, let's try and get a chance on this second verse. At like no point we thought he'd actually cut the verse, you know what I mean? So he like came back in an email one day, we were like, bro. But I don't know, we were just trying to reach for the right thing, and I think like just doing things that make sense, rather than, you never like pitch something to someone that doesn't make any sense, you know? We wouldn't have been like, oh, you could do a verse on this, but they'd be like, oh man, this doesn't sound like something I would sing on. You just write the right type of thing, and it's always just been artists we've been into, man. Like, genuinely. Yeah. Like, I think everyone we've worked with has just been, like, cool fucking person who just, it's like, hey, we like your music. Do you want to sing on? You know? That's always it, you know? Yeah.
Do you, when you're writing music, do you go into it, like, when you're starting a song, and maybe this changes, like, I'm probably not the same every time, but, like, do you go in with, like, an idea of, like, I want to make this kind of song with like this person in mind, or is it just like blank slate more often than not?
Yeah, not really, because I think when we do stuff like that, it always turns out different what you think anyway. I don't think we've ever been able to go and be like, let's do this type of record, and it always just end up in like a million miles away from what you thought it was going to be. You know? Like genuinely, I don't think.
An example of that, like of one of your songs that like started a certain way?
I feel like probably all of them. I feel like Gucci Guacamole, the last one, like I don't know what the hell that started out as, but like it definitely ended up in a different place.
Yeah.
But it's cool though as well because it's exciting and you'll suddenly be like, oh man, like, you know, that sounded like this, but now it sounds like that, and like, you know, you just roll with it. But we never had too much of an agenda because I don't think we'd work very well if you have like a, you know, like a brief to work to. It just sounds kind of stupid. I don't know if that would work out too well.
Yeah, I mean, I know like the song with Zayn, it's kind of got like a New Jack swing going on.
Right.
Like, so I wonder, but it sound like was that just like happened? Like,
well, I don't know. I feel like it was like a couple of things that went down. It was like, wait, this would sound cool if we sped it up to this, but like, it wasn't like we were trying to write a New Jack swing record. He does that shit, man.
In 2016.
I know.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't know. Like, sometimes you just come up with something and it suddenly makes sense if you flip it like this or you do something like that. Like, there's been a few things where I've had a few tunes like that where you'll be like, what happens if you just pitch it down, you know, a million things to slow it down? But it's just part of the process, you know. Yeah. I don't know. I never stick to like a plan. It just do what you got to do.
So I want to ask a question about when, like, a moment in your career coming up where you felt like this is something that you could start to like really take seriously, like your music career. Like, obviously you started off just like making beats for yourself because you wanted to and it was fun. Like, was there one or two or like a couple moments where you're like, wow, this is like something that I could do? Like, how did you know that?
I don't know, not specifically, because I've always been like a very, very skeptical person of anything. So like, I don't know, it's been like a very gradual like thing. Like, definitely in the first place, like there'd be a time where I was living with my dad in Barnet, like North London, represent. Jeez. And like, I'd just be so frustrated by everything that was going on. There was no point where I got gassed and I was like, this is gonna be my job. I was like, bruh, like, let's see if it's my job. But like, not really. I think there's a few times like in the SoundCloud thing where like we put a record out and it would get so many views in like an hour or whatever, and you'd be like, wow, man, like there's people listening. But yeah, I don't know, man. It was very, very gradual, like kind of trajectory. And there was no point where we kind of like had that. I was like, oh man, this is popping. It was kind of like, oh, this is kind of popping, and then it was like popping a little bit more. It was gradual, as fuck.
It's interesting because like, I mean, I feel like whenever I talk to artists, that's a common answer. Like
right.
the idea of like getting your big break.
You get gassed by your first thing. It's like, wow, that's so cool, and you're like, wait, that wasn't even that cool. Like, this is cool, and then like, and it's all cool.
Yeah. Like you immediately compare it to like something else. Or,
right.
So like, what would be, you know, let's say there's like a little Snakehips out there, like trying to get his name out. In this day and age, like 2019, like having SoundCloud not be what it is anymore necessarily, like what would you say to someone like that, like in terms of just like advice creatively?
Just like, get yourself out there. Like, that's all I did was like, I was so like on it with just sending people my stuff. If I was like even the slightest bit proud of any of my bits of music, I'd be like I send it to everyone, because like, dude, it's like maybe your snare drum's not EQ'd right or your kick's a bit whack, but like if you're confident in the music you're making, you just have to do it and just keep doing it, and just like, it's all about like just don't spend too much time on one thing, and just do a million little things. Like, I was making like 5 beats a day, you know, and like I wouldn't put them all on the internet, but like that was kind of my thing. I'd be like, wake up in the afternoon, make a beat, and then put it on SoundCloud, and if someone's like, this is shit, I'd be like, fuck you, bro. But like it.
How long were you doing that for? Like the 5 beats a day?
Like years, man. Yeah, genuinely years. Probably, I don't know, like 2 years maybe. Just cause like you gotta hone your skills, and like it's not always necessarily the same like skill set, but like don't get bogged down in one thing. Just like do another one. You know, if you get stuck on something, just do another one. Just do another one. Do another one, and like. It's all about, I think, being creative. It's just like fucking smashing out ideas, and just like, you know, it's like, bruv, like if you get really caught up in like a certain thing, it's like, oh man, I spent like 2 years on this tune. What do you think of it? It's gonna kill you, man. If it's not that sick, it's like just get involved and just keep smashing that out. Seriously, because I don't know. I just feel like the more stuff that you do, you learn every time even if you get something wrong, it just makes more sense every time. And it's like, that was a bit whack, but like I could do it better this time. And like you just, it's not even consistency, but like what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe not even that though. Like, there's a word
proficiency.
Proficiency.
Yeah.
Proficiency.
No, I think that's like really good to hear though from someone like of where you are, because like I think there's this like myth, I guess, that it's like, oh, you either have it or you don't, or like if talent. I mean, there is an element of that, but like just to hear that you actually like work really hard. It's
stupid to me because I remember like when I was like doing my first beats, I'd know so many people when we were all on SoundCloud at the same time, and there'd be someone who'd be like, hey, I've been working on this for 3 weeks, and in the title they put like WIP, work in progress, on it. I was like, bro, just like
just be
it's
confident.
finished, man. Like, what are you trying to do to that? Why are you even like just like have a little bit less kind of shame about what you're doing. Just like we're all making music. It's not really like that much of a deal, and it's really important to get other people's thoughts on it. I always thought that, and like people can help you, and like mate, there's nothing wrong with just like being a beginner or whatever. It's like everyone starts like that, and like if you got this, if you're nice, man. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned like early days, right? Like you were just like on it, sending your music out to a bunch of people, and that's the kind of thing, like the promotion business side of it is the kind of thing, like eventually, if you're trying to do this as a career, like you start getting a team and they help you with that stuff so you can focus more on the music. So like talk about a little bit about like how you started to build your team and like, because I feel like some people, they think they need a manager way too early maybe, or they go too long without getting one, or so just talk a bit about that.
Yeah, for real. Like actually, I was very, very blessed because like my manager, Johnny right here, he's a very nice man. But we had like a lot of mutual friends at the time, and I guess starting out, I was always very, very skeptical of people trying to like help you out or trying to like represent you or whatever, because I don't know, I don't trust a lot of people. I was always like, bro, like, what are you saying? But I feel like there was a couple weeks in London where I like met a bunch of people, and I was just trying to like scope motherfuckers out, and I don't know, man. You just got to be like just real like clever about it. It's like if people, you just know, you just got to judge people's characters. Like I feel like I met like 5 or 6 different people who was trying to be like, hey, let me manage you, and I was like, well, this guy seems a bit lazy, and this guy's like, I don't know specifically what advice I would give. We just have to like feel it, like and just make genuine connections with people, because like I feel like when your friendship comes first before business, like you're always gonna have each other's backs, and like maybe that's not always the best way, or maybe that's not always the way that it goes down, but like there's not a single person on my team of like agents or managers or anyone that I couldn't like go out for dinner with and hang out with them for a few hours. Like I love all them people, and you just have to not be hasty with shit and just like try and figure it out in an intelligent and kind of you know what I mean, right?
I hear you, man.
I don't know, because I feel like that's maybe a luxury, because there was literally like friends of friends. Like I was very lucky, like literally some of my best friends had someone who was getting into the music industry and managing people and stuff. But still, like I wouldn't have like signed my management to someone who I didn't like really trust and thought was like actually a solid gold dude before they were like a businessman, And I think that's got to be part of it, because if they don't like really respect you as a dude or whatever, then what even is that connection, I don't know, man. I'm more, I prefer having people who are my buddies rather than like someone who's trying to like, you know what I mean?
I hear you. So we got like 10 minutes left, so we might open it up to some questions. But before we do, any last parting words, Ollie?
Jeez.
You heard the man. So yeah, we'll just do like 10 minutes of questions. I think we're just gonna pass this mic around, right?
Does anyone have any questions? Aasheesh, oh my bro, sorry.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey. I just wonder what your thoughts are on the differences between your shows in the US and your shows in Europe and the UK. How do those two kind of worlds work for you?
I don't know, man. I always feel like wherever you're at, it's always just try and keep it the same shit, you know? Like, it's always like a different crowd, but it's just like, you just gotta bring the same kind of thing to everywhere you go, I guess. You know?
Do you feel like there's, I don't know, do you feel like you have sort of different audiences in different parts of the world? And is that exciting?
Yeah, it's wicked. It's cool to just show up in a different part of the world and just like see what's going on. Yeah, man. It's always different. Like anywhere you play is different. But like, I feel like it's important to like keep it real and just do what you would have done like anywhere, you know, rather than like. But yeah.
Hey,
Hello.
I have a question. As an artist, you always have ups and downs, right? And your work is like has to do directly with your mental state. How
Right.
do you deal with those down moments? You know, when maybe you doubt yourself because it's normal. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I deal with them very well. It is a lot like that, but like, I think, I don't know, man. It's like, just remember how lucky you are. Like, that's what I do anyway. Like, I have, like, my family is so sick and my friends are so cool. So, like, I never get too, like, caught up on stuff because, like, I'd much rather be, like, flying around the world and DJing than, like, working in Tesco's or whatever. And, like, I've done some shit fucking jobs. Excuse my French. But, like, I really have. And, like, you know, it's like a few years on, and I'm not like stacking shelves or like so like, I think it's important to just like know that you're blessed as fuck, you know, and like it's what it is, man. I feel like in every avenue of life you have ups and downs and stuff, and it's like, raw, man. Like, you're not more susceptible to being upset just because you're like an artist or whatever. Like, it happens to everyone, you know. You do what you do, and like life, it just isn't that like rosy all the whole time, you know? But that's life, and like I think it's about having perspective and like keeping good people around you, you know?
Thank you.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
I'm over here.
Hey.
How's it going? So how do you balance? You know, I mean, if you're touring all the time, I guess you're in like a totally different mindset when you're playing versus when you're in the studio mindset. So do you have like a you know, way that you kind of get around that to get in the zone for making beats, or is it just something that comes naturally?
Yeah, not really. Like I've always found it like it's like nothing that I can force. Like I don't I can't sit down and go like I'm gonna make a beat. Like I can sometimes go like 3 days without making a beat and then I'll make like 20 beats. Like it's nothing that I can force. I feel like when you're touring and stuff, sometimes you'll play a show and it's like you get so inspired by people having a good time or whatever. So it's like it is what it is. But yeah, it's not like a thing that I have to. I just like making beats, but not all the time. Thank you.
We just sit here in silence for another 5 minutes. All right, well, if there's no other questions, thank you guys for coming. And Ollie, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it. And we're done.